Hi everybody, I'm Ryan. Today we're going to talk about Kuldotha Burn in Pauper. Now this is coincidentally one of the best Pauper decks in the format. Now coincidentally, this is one of the best decks in the format. And we're going to talk about how the deck works, the card choices, the different sections of the cards in the deck, I guess you'd call it, the different things the cards are trying to do, and how you burn your opponent out before they even get to play the game in Pauper. Let's talk about it. So this is Kuldotha Burn. The lands is not much to look at. We're playing 13 Mountains alongside 4 Great Furnaces. We'll talk about why we're playing Great Furnace in just a second. And it's trying to do a couple different things. I have these in kind of a bad order of how I want to talk about them. First off is the really obvious stuff. We have creatures and we have burn spells. So the creatures include Voldarian Epicure, deals 1 damage when it enters the battlefield as a 1/1 and creates a blood token, which is an artifact we can sacrifice. That'll become relevant shortly. Playing Monastery Swiftspear, which is a 1/2 with haste and prowess, which when you cast a non-creature spell gets +1/+1, which will become relevant shortly. And we play Goblin Blast Runner, which is a 1-mana 1/2 that gets +2/+0 and is menace as long as you sacrifice a permanent this turn. Coincidentally, we're going to be sacrificing a lot of permanents, which we'll talk about shortly. The second section of the deck is burn spells, and this is really, really straightforward. You know, we have 4 Chain Lightnings, which is just a sorcery speed lightning bolt against most decks. We're playing 4 Galvanic Blasts, which is a big reason why we're playing Great Furnace, along with some artifacts over here, so that we can deal 4 damage instead of 2. We're playing 4 Lightning Bolts, which is the best burn spell in Magic. We're playing 2 Lava Darts, which deals 1 damage to any target, and we can flashback by sacrificing a mountain. Boom, Goblin Blast Runner. And we're playing a 1 of Fire Blast. You can't really play too many of this card, because if you play too many of this card, then you just never have any lands because you're never going to cast it for retail, dealing 4 damage by sacrificing 2 mountains. Again, boom, Goblin Blast Runner. So we're dealing a ton of damage with these cards, but we're going to cycle through a ton of our deck with these cards. And we're playing 4 Reckless Impulse, which is essentially draw 2 cards as far as burn is concerned. Exiling the top 2 cards of your library till end of your next turn, maybe play those cards. Everything costs 1 or 2 mana. Actually, literally everything costs 1 mana besides Reckless Impulse. So when you do that, you just get to cast those cards very easily, even if you cast Reckless Impulse on turn 2. We're playing 4 Experimental Synthesizer, which is an artifact that can turn on Galvanic Blast, but also allows us to dig deeper into our deck, because as it enters the battlefield, we can play that card until the end of the turn, and we can pay 3 mana and sacrifice it to create a 2/2 White Samurai, which we're sacrificing a permanent, so Goblin Blast Runner. Also, again, the blood token from Voldarian Epicure you can sacrifice for a Goblin Blast Runner. We're also playing 1 Implement of Combustion. It doesn't really do anything when it enters a battlefield. We can sacrifice it to deal 1 damage, and when it's put in the graveyard from the battlefield, we get to draw a card, which again, sacrificing with Goblin Blast Runner. And an artifact alongside Galvanic Blast. And the namesake card of the deck is Kuldotha Rebirth, where you can pay 1 red mana, it's a sorcery, sacrifice an artifact, and create 3 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. The artifacts that we can sacrifice include the blood token from Voldarian Epicure, the Experimental Synthesizer, which also triggers it because it's leaving the battlefield. We also get to exile the top card. Implement of Combustion, which also triggers us to draw a card because it's entering the graveyard from the battlefield. Or Great Furnace, or even the blood token from Voldarian Epicure. And when you sacrifice that thing, you trigger Goblin Blast Runner. So we have a lot of cards that like synergize off of each other while we're trying to kill our opponent as fast as possible. And that feels so, so good. As far as the sideboard goes and the festivities is for any deck that your opponent plays a lot of 1/1s. The thing that comes to my mind immediately is like Kogate or even the Mirror Match. It's really good against. Raise is very good against any deck that is playing lands that you care about, like Basilisk Gate, or lands that produce 2 mana. You can really set them back very, very quickly because we don't really care about our extra lands anyway. Red Elemental Blast is great against any deck that is playing blue spells or has blue permanents. That's obvious. Flaring Pain is really good against fog effects because fogs really hurt us like super, super bad. And so any deck is playing any fog effects, we recite in Flaring Pain. Mind Collapse is for decks that are playing creatures that we care about, especially creatures with like really big butts, and double especially creatures that have big butts that are doing things on their own, like the Wallace combo deck and things like that. And then Relic of Progenitus for graveyard shenanigans, which again, in Relic of Progenitus for graveyard shenanigans, unfortunately when we pay 1 and exile Relic of Progenitus, that is not sacrificed, and so it will not trigger Goblin Blast Runner. But this is an extremely fast, extremely powerful, one of the best decks in Pauper, bar none. I encourage you to try it. And so if you like videos like this and want to see more deck text and explanations of cards in decks in every format, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description, especially on Twitch where I stream there most nights. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.